Emily Rhodes and Tyler Hayes thought their story ended with a breakup, but what followed was far darker than either could imagine. A twisted game of obsession, revenge, and consequences that would change both of their lives forever. Emily Rhodes had always believed that leaving Tyler Hayes would be the end of her troubles, not the beginning of something far worse. For 2 years, their relationship had been a roller coaster of charm and control. Tyler could be sweet when he wanted something, but when things didn't go his way, his temper came out like a storm. He would go from apologetic to furious within minutes, blaming Emily for things that weren't her fault. Friends told her to walk away long before she finally did, but it took one last explosive argument for her to realize she was done. When Emily ended it, she thought the silence that followed meant peace. She blocked his number, removed him from social media, and moved into a new apartment closer to her job. For the first few weeks, it seemed like she was finally free. She started focusing on herself again, reconnecting with friends, even smiling more. But freedom didn't sit well with Tyler. The breakup shattered his fragile ego. To him, Emily's decision wasn't just rejection, it was betrayal. Tyler started watching her life from the outside. He created new social media accounts just to see what she was doing. Every post, every picture, every smile felt like an insult. He convinced himself that she had already replaced him, that she had moved on too easily. Late at night, he would scroll through her photos for hours, replaying memories in his head until anger replaced nostalgia. He began talking to mutual friends, fishing for details about her life. Most of them refused to get involved, but rumors have a way of finding their way to people who are desperate to hear them. Emily, unaware of how deep his obsession had grown, started dating again after a few months. She met Daniel, a calm and respectful man who treated her the way she had always hoped to be treated. Their relationship was quiet and healthy, everything her past one wasn't. To Tyler, though, it was proof that she had moved on without a second thought. That realization tore at him like an open wound. His messages started coming again, from new numbers and fake profiles. Some were desperate, begging her to talk. Others were cold, filled with blame and resentment. At first, Emily ignored them. She thought he would eventually stop if she didn't respond. But Tyler didn't want closure. He wanted control. The thought of her being happy with someone else was unbearable. He started showing up near her workplace, parking across the street just to watch her come and go. Sometimes she felt eyes on her, a lingering presence she couldn't explain. A few nights, she even thought she saw his car pass by her building, but she convinced herself it was paranoia. Tyler's anger began to consume everything around him. He stopped showing up to work on time. His friends noticed the change. He was drinking more, snapping at people over small things, talking endlessly about how Emily had ruined his life. What he didn't realize was that his obsession was slowly taking over, turning him into someone unrecognizable. What had started as heartbreak was morphing into hatred. He began imagining ways to make her feel the same pain he felt. In his mind, he wasn't plotting revenge. He was balancing the scales. He told himself she deserved to be scared, to understand what it felt like to lose control. He didn't know yet how far he was willing to go, but deep down, he was already on a path that couldn't end well for either of them. Tyler's thoughts grew darker as the days passed. What had once been sadness now burned into a dangerous obsession. He spent hours sitting in his car outside Emily's new neighborhood, memorizing the rhythm of her life. He watched when she left for work, when she came home, when Daniel's car appeared and disappeared from the driveway. The quiet streets and flickering streetlights became his cover. Every small detail fed his anger, convincing him that Emily had moved on too quickly, that she had never cared about him at all. He told himself that he wasn't going to hurt her, just teach her a lesson. Revenge was the only way he could feel in control again. The thought of her being happy while he struggled made him furious. So, he started planning. He bought a notebook, filled it with sketches of her apartment layout, her parking spot, even notes about when neighbors walked their dogs. He began imagining small ways to make her life uncomfortable, messages that would make her anxious, moments that would make her doubt her safety. He believed that if he could make her scared, she would remember him again. One evening, Tyler created a fake social media profile using a stolen photo of a friendly-looking neighbor. Under that disguise, he began sending Emily cryptic warnings. He claimed that Daniel was secretly meeting other women, that he had been seen with someone else at a restaurant across town. The messages were designed to plant suspicion and make her question her new relationship. For a brief moment, Tyler felt powerful again. He watched her online activity, waiting to see signs of tension between her and Daniel. But days passed, and nothing changed. She didn't post sad quotes or disappear from social media like he expected. Instead, she shared photos of weekend trips and dinners, smiling beside Daniel as if nothing was wrong. That smile made Tyler snap. The idea that his tricks hadn't worked pushed him to think of something bigger. His mind turned to her car, the one she drove every morning. It sat parked in the open, easy to access, almost inviting. Late one night, he waited until the neighborhood was silent. With gloves on and tools tucked inside his jacket, he crouched beside the car. He loosened parts beneath the hood, focusing on small details he thought would go unnoticed. In his mind, it was harmless. A scare, a warning, a way to make her panic, but not suffer real harm. He told himself that once she felt that fear, she would understand how much power he still had over her. When he walked away from the car, he felt lighter. For the first time in months, his anger seemed to settle. He imagined her face in the morning, frustrated and frightened when something went wrong. That image gave him satisfaction. But what Tyler didn't realize was that he had made a crucial mistake. In the dim light of the street, his hand had slipped. The part he thought belonged to her car's system was actually a component he had tested earlier on his own vehicle in the same garage. The confusion went unnoticed in the dark. To him, the job was done. He drove away with a grim smile, thinking his plan had worked perfectly. The next morning, Emily's car wouldn't start, but she was unharmed. Across town, Tyler prepared for work, unaware that karma was already waiting for him on the road. Dawn smelled of wet asphalt. Emily watched a tow operator lift her car and point to loose components and metal shavings near the engine. The small details felt heavy. In a normal day, they would be annoyances. In this one, they were proof. Neighbors shared footage from the previous night, a shadow crossing the driveway, a car idling on the corner. The clips were grainy, nearly useless until an officer noticed a hood ornament. That small clue matched a vehicle seen on other security cameras around town. Tyler's morning collapsed into chaos. Rain slicked an exit ramp and his car fishtailed. Metal hit guardrail and airbags deployed in a white cloud. When he crawled out, tools spilled from the trunk. Wrenches, gloves, a notebook with sketches of someone else's vehicle. Blood and oil mixed on his hands. For a beat, the world narrowed to the cold realization that what he carried could be read as intent. First responders treated his wounds and cleared the scene, but detectives were already watching. They pulled footage from a poll camera and found Tyler's vehicle circling the block at odd hours. Forensics cataloged grease smears, partial prints, fibers, and the trace of metal filings that matched those under Emily's hood. Small, discrete items began to join into a single damning picture. Emily felt a strange knot of emotions. Relief at being unharmed sat beside the knowledge that someone had tried to frighten her. The mechanic's firm voice had named what she had feared. Sabotage. Hearing that the same tools were found at another crash made the world tilt. The idea that someone's private fury had rooted itself in the neighborhood was hard to accept. Conversations in the area shifted. Neighbors who once exchanged casual greetings began to trade practical advice. Extra lights, different parking, security cameras. The hum of everyday life took on a cautious edge. People walked with heads down, eyes flicking to parked cars and dark corners. Detectives methodically connected evidence. A finger smudge on a wrench matched prints from a social media account traced to Tyler. The notebook contained times and sketches that lined up with surveillance timestamps. Each confirmed link turned suspicion into probable cause. What had been an uneasy feeling became a case file. Tyler's injuries left him unable to avoid police questions. He offered explanations that sounded thin beside the physical facts, the tools, the timing, the footage. As officers assembled the pieces, the press arrived, drawn to the irony, a plotted act that had rebounded. The story spread quickly, sharpening opinions and loosening old facades. In quiet moments, Emily considered the strange fold of events, a plan hatched in anger, an action taken in darkness, and a sudden, chaotic return of consequence. The neighborhood's ordinary pattern had been broken, and inside that break lay a lesson about how private choices can spill into public harm. People would later judge motives and intent, but for now the immediate task was clear: understand what happened and prevent it from happening again. Detectives pored over every piece of evidence with painstaking attention. Every photograph, every timestamp, every social media post was cataloged and cross-referenced. The fake profile Tyler had created to monitor and manipulate Emily became a key piece of the puzzle. Emails, IP addresses, and login times painted a picture that could not be ignored. It was clear that the harassment had been deliberate, methodical, and escalating. Security footage from nearby streets revealed patterns of Tyler's movements. He would linger at corners, park across from Emily's apartment, and circle the block multiple times in a single evening. Observers noted his irregular hours and obsessive behavior. The tiny details, the way he seemed to study her entry and exit, the moments he waited in his car, formed a timeline that tracked the growth of his fixation. Forensic analysis confirmed what officers had suspected. The metal filings found under Emily A.'s car matched those on tools discovered in Tyler A.'s trunk, and partial fingerprints linked him to both. Emily tried to process the scale of it all. Messages that had once seemed random or insignificant suddenly made sense. Every warning, every insinuation about Daniel, every attempt to manipulate her emotions fit into a larger, sinister plan. The realization that Tyler had intended more than just words, that he had actively tried to instill fear through tampering, was chilling. For weeks, she had felt uneasy, sensed that someone was watching, and dismissed it as paranoia. Now, the truth crystallized, and fear gave way to relief that no serious harm had come to her. The investigation revealed Tyler's meticulous preparation. Investigators found the notebook he had kept, filled with sketches of her apartment, vehicle diagrams, and notes on her daily routines. These pages showed the level of premeditation, how he had calculated the best times to act and anticipated her responses. In his mind, this was strategy. In reality, it was the foundation of his downfall. Every small action that had once been hidden in darkness became evidence under scrutiny, exposing the breadth of his obsession. Authorities also uncovered the extent of Tyler's social manipulation. The fabricated neighbor account, the false messages, and the attempts to create tension between Emily and Daniel demonstrated a disturbing combination of technology and psychological coercion. Experts noted that his actions reflected a deep inability to accept loss, a need to exert control, and a lack of foresight regarding the consequences of his behavior. Even as detectives reconstructed his attempts to frighten Emily, they recognized that the plan had failed spectacularly. When the investigation went public, it shocked the community. Tyler had been seen as a typical resident, someone ordinary and unremarkable. The revelation that he had been plotting against someone he once claimed to love shattered that image. Friends, co-workers, and neighbors struggled to reconcile the caring persona they knew with the obsessive, vengeful individual the evidence revealed. The story became a cautionary tale, highlighting how easily obsession can turn destructive when combined with planning and opportunity. Emily, guided by the police, took protective measures, installing additional security cameras and creating routines that increased her sense of safety. The process of understanding what had happened, of seeing the evidence laid bare, allowed her to reclaim some control. Tyler's hidden actions, once threatening and unpredictable, were now fully exposed. Every photograph, every note, every message worked against him. What had begun as an attempt to terrorize someone else became the evidence that ensured he could not escape the consequences. Months passed after Tyler's arrest, and the case slowly moved through the justice system. Courtrooms buzzed with the weight of evidence against him. Every photograph, notebook, social media post, and security clip was presented, building a clear narrative of premeditated harassment and attempted intimidation. Prosecutors emphasized the calculated nature of his actions, the way he had observed Emily's routines, tampered with her property, and created fake profiles to manipulate her perception of reality. The defense struggled to counter the mounting proof. Tyler's own notes and the tools discovered in his possession were indisputable, leaving little room for doubt. Emily attended some of the proceedings, though she remained mostly in the background, watching as her life, once disrupted by fear and obsession, was now at the center of a legal reckoning. She had expected to feel anger or resentment, but instead a quiet sense of relief settled over her. The court became a place where the danger that had once shadowed her days was transformed into facts and consequences. Tyler could no longer hide behind charm or manipulation. The truth was undeniable, laid bare for all to see. The sentence was severe but fitting. Tyler was convicted on multiple counts, including stalking, harassment, and attempted destruction of property. The judge highlighted the dangerous escalation of his behavior, noting that what might have started as emotional distress had developed into deliberate, threatening actions. Tyler would serve several years in prison, a consequence that reflected both the severity of his offenses and the risk he had posed. The courtroom fell silent as the verdict was read, the weight of his misdeeds finally acknowledged in a public, formal way. Emily, free from the constant shadow of fear, began the painstaking process of rebuilding her life. She relocated to a different city, seeking a fresh start and new surroundings. She changed routines, added security measures, and focused on her personal growth. Over time, she found a sense of normalcy again. She could walk without glancing over her shoulder, sleep without tension in her chest, and plan her days without the invisible hand of someone else's obsession dictating her choices. Meanwhile, Tyler's story became a cautionary tale. Friends, neighbors, and the wider community reflected on the dangers of unchecked obsession. Experts discussed the psychological patterns that had led to his behavior, warning that the seemingly small steps of stalking, manipulation, and emotional coercion could escalate into real-world danger. His downfall became a lesson in cause and effect. The very actions he had intended to harm someone else ultimately destroyed his own freedom and reputation. Years later, Emily looked back at the experience with clarity. What had once felt like the terrifying unpredictability of someone else's rage was now a chapter closed by accountability and justice. Tyler had sought to control her life through fear, but in the end, it was he who faced the consequences. The lesson was stark but undeniable. When hatred and obsession dictate choices, karma often finds a way to balance the scales. Emily's life moved forward, stronger and wiser, a testament to resilience and the certainty that revenge, no matter how meticulously planned, often backfires in ways the perpetrator never expects.